It's impossible to ignore how much artificial intelligence is already shaping, well, everything. How we hire people, what we buy, even how major decisions get made. And a lot of the time, we don't even see it happening.
It really is the critical governance challenge of our time. And as these AI capabilities just explode, the demand for some kind of clear, reliable, ethical guidelines has become absolutely paramount.
Right. The stakes are just incredibly high. And we've seen organizations all over the world, academic groups, huge government commissions. They've all launched initiatives to try and establish these principles.
Dozens of them.
Yeah.
Which brings us right to the core problem we're going to unpack in this deep dive.
Okay, so let's just lay it out there. The issue isn't a lack of effort. It's a glut of competing principles.
Exactly. The research we're focusing on looked at 6 of these, very high-profile documents and found 47 different individual principles proposed across them.
47. I mean, that's just a ton of different standards to sort through.
It's what we call principle proliferation. And if you, the listener, are trying to run a business or draft a regulation, that number presents a few big risks. First, maybe they're all just saying the same thing in different ways. Redundancy.
Or the second risk is that they're all saying different things, which just creates confusion.
And that can paralyze action. But there's a third, and I think a worse outcome.
The market for principles.
Yes. The source material warns about this specifically. Imagine a company building a really sensitive AI, maybe for predictive policing.
Yeah.
They could just go shopping for the set of ethical guidelines that are the most appealing or, the least restrictive for them.
Which kind of defeats the whole purpose of having ethics in the first place, right?
It completely undermines it. So that's our mission today. We want to cut through all that noise because the analysis found that despite the sheer volume, there is this impressive and frankly reassuring convergence.
A common ground.
A huge common ground. And we're going to synthesize all of it into a clear, unified framework of 5 core principles, a kind of architectural foundation for ethical AI.
Okay, so before we get to the pillars themselves, let's get on the same page about what we even mean by AI here. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot.
Right. We should probably anchor ourselves in the classic definition. It goes all the way back to the 1955 Dartmouth Project on AI.
The very beginning.
The very beginning. And they define the goal as making a machine behave in ways that would be called intelligent if a human were so behaving.
And that's such a key distinction. It's a counterfactual definition, isn't it?
It is. The machine doesn't have to be intelligent or conscious or anything like that. It just has to behave in a way that gets the job done intelligently.
Right. Like your dishwasher might clean dishes better than a person, but it doesn't mean it cleans them like a person.
Exactly. So for our purposes, think of AI as a reservoir of smart agency on tap. It's all about the engineered outcomes and the actions it takes.
And it's the scale of that reservoir and how opaque it can be that really necessitates these guidelines.
That's the link. And when the researchers started distilling those 47 principles, they saw this convergence wasn't random at all. It actually drew a really strong parallel to another field.
Bioethics.
Bioethics, a field that's been grappling with these kinds of human agent questions for decades.
So the 4 core principles of bioethics, beneficence, non-maleficence, autonomy, and justice, they turned out to be a surprisingly good starting point.
A perfect starting point. They adapt so well because bioethics has so much experience with, new technologies and vulnerable people. It gave them the structure they needed for digital ethics.
Okay, so let's walk through them. Let's start with principle 1, beneficence, which is essentially do good.
Right. At its core, beneficence is about ensuring AI promotes well-being, preserves human dignity, and, makes things better for everyone.
And the different groups interpreted this in slightly different ways.
They did. The Montreal Declaration and the IE, for example, they focused on well-being in a more general sense.
But the European group on ethics, the EGE, they took a much broader stance, focusing on sustainability.
A much wider view. For them, beneficence means ensuring the preconditions for life on the planet. It's about helping humanity prosper and preserving the environment for, future generations.
So it's not just about AI being profitable. It has to be restorative.
It's a huge mandate. It's tying AI development directly to things like the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay, so if beneficence is what AI should do, what about what it shouldn't? That brings us to principle 2, non-maleficence, do no harm.
Right. And while beneficence is about encouraging good, This is about actively cautioning against the bad stuff, misuse, overuse, negative consequences.
And the most obvious one that comes to mind is privacy.
It's a huge one. 5 of the 6 documents really emphasized preventing personal privacy violations, but the concerns went way beyond that.
Like the warnings against an AI arms race.
Exactly. Or even more esoteric things like the recursive self-improvement of AI that the Acalytica principles mentioned.
The fear of systems just evolving beyond any human control.
Which poses this really fascinating quandary, one for you to think about. When we talk about doing no harm, are we worried about the people making the AI or the tech itself?
Frankenstein or his monster?
Precisely. Is the threat a malicious developer, or is it the technology taking on a kind of catastrophic life of its own?
And that changes everything about how you'd regulate it.
It does. If it's Frankenstein, you focus on governance and malicious intent. If it's the monster, you have to worry about these unforeseen, emergent behaviors that even the designers didn't see coming.
I imagine the answer is both.
Often it's both. And non-maleficence demands that we have to account for both intentional misuse and the risk that a complex system just produces outcomes that are catastrophic for us.
Okay, that relationship between human and machine brings us right to the third principle, autonomy.
Yes. So when we use AI, we are willingly ceding some of our own decision-making power.
And the paradox here is that as artificial autonomy grows, it can actually undermine our human autonomy.
That's the balancing act. If an AI is making hiring decisions or medical diagnoses, the human in the loop needs to maintain control over the process, even if they trust the machine's output.
So how do you actually do that? Where do you draw the line so that the human is still in control?
Well, the source material introduces this really powerful idea called meta-autonomy.
Meta-autonomy, the decide to delegate model.
Exactly. It means humans must always retain the power to choose which decisions to hand over. And any delegation has to be restricted and, crucially, reversible. You have to be able to take back control.
Okay, give me a real-world example.
The classic one is an airplane's autopilot. The pilot chooses to delegate control, but they must always have that simple, unrestricted ability to just switch it off and take the yoke themselves.
The big red button.
The big red button. Or think about a medical AI. It might suggest a treatment, but the doctor and patient must have the right to understand why and to override it based on factors the AI just can't process. The moment that delegation becomes irreversible, you've lost human autonomy.
So if autonomy is about the individual's choice, what about the collective consequences? That sounds like where justice comes in, principle 4.
That's it. Justice is fundamentally about fairness and equity.
So things like eliminating unfair discrimination in hiring algorithms.
Yes, or promoting diversity, avoiding bias in data sets. That's a huge one.
Yeah.
If you train an AI on historically biased loan data, it will just learn to codify and amplify those past injustices.
In the source material, I found it really interesting that the EGE specifically warned against threats to solidarity.
It's a unique and really important point. They were talking about systems of mutual assistance, like social insurance or public health care.
So the risk is that AI could let certain people game the system.
Or opt out of it entirely. Imagine using personalized health data to destabilize insurance pools. That threatens the social contracts that we all rely on. Justice demands that AI should reinforce those systems, not dismantle them.
So we have the 4 traditional pillars: beneficence, non-maleficence, autonomy, and justice. They seem to cover the what, the why, the how, but the analysis found something was missing.
There was a gap, a crucial missing piece needed to resolve this whole complex human-AI relationship.
And it comes back to the reality that a tiny fraction of humanity is building this tech that transforms life for basically everyone else.
Right. We need a way to understand what's going on inside that reservoir of smart agency and, hold it to account.
So what was the missing 5th pillar?
The missing pillar is explicability.
Explicability. And this is the umbrella term that covers all those other words we hear, like transparency, intelligibility, accountability.
It is, and it has 2 very distinct components. The first is intelligibility. You can think of that as the how does it work question.
Okay, the technical part.
The technical part, but it's vital for non-experts too. The customer, the patient, the policymaker, they need to understand the mechanism enough to actually trust the output.
And the second component
Is accountability, the ethical component.
which answers the question, who is responsible for how it works?
Especially when it fails. And this is why explicability is so important. It's the piece that enables all the other 4 principles to actually work.
So it's not just number 5 on a list.
Yeah.
It's the operating system that makes the other 4 run.
That's a great way to put it. For AI to be just, You need intelligibility to even spot the bias, and then you need accountability to fix it. To have meta-autonomy, the human has to be informed about how the AI works.
It all connects back.
It all connects back. Without explicability, the other principles are just philosophical hopes. They don't have a concrete way to be inspected or enforced.
So when you look at the big picture, it's pretty powerful that this synthesis, taking 47 principles and boiling them down to these 5, actually captured every single one of them.
Every single one from the documents they analyzed. That level of coherence is really strong proof that this framework is robust.
But there's always a but.
There is an important caveat the researchers raise. The initial 6 sets of principles came mostly from Western liberal democracies or global but Western-led initiatives.
And for this to be truly universal, it needs a broader perspective.
We absolutely need the perspectives of underrepresented regions and cultures because different cultures have fundamentally different ideas about technology, state power, the individual versus the collective.
What's considered just or beneficent in one place could be seen as a huge threat to autonomy in another.
Exactly. You can't ignore the global landscape, especially the significance of a country like China, which has stated its ambition to lead the world in AI by 2030 and has, certain structural advantages in data collection and state deployment.
Which brings up that claim you sometimes hear, that ethics could be Europe's silver bullet in the so-called global AI battle.
And that framing is just too limited. Ethics isn't a competitive tool. It's not the exclusive property of one culture or continent. Every single entity deploying AI has an obligation to use an ethical framework like this. The consequences of getting it wrong are global.
So, did this framework actually get used? Or did it just become another academic paper?
Oh no, quite the opposite. It immediately started serving as architectural scaffolding for real policy. An organization called AI for People adopted it to propose 20 concrete recommendations to the European Commission.
So they translated these 5 pillars into specific policy language.
Yes. Everything from rules on non-discrimination to mandates for human oversight. It wasn't abstract philosophy anymore.
And that had a direct global impact.
A huge one. Those recommendations heavily influenced the European Commission's official ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI. And from there, they went on to shape the OECD's recommendation on AI.
Which has now been adopted by how many countries?
42 countries worldwide. So you can draw a direct line from this scholarly analysis straight to global policy. It's a remarkable journey.
That is fantastic. So to sum it all up, this unified framework, beneficence, non-maleficence, autonomy, justice, and explicability. It provides the architecture for real laws, real rules, best practices.
And it plays a critical dual role. It's helping us use AI to meet big global goals. But it's also constraining, helping us regulate dangerous uses in things like cyber warfare.
Because AI really does hold the potential to either alleviate or massively amplify the inequalities we already have. The real goal is to get from good principles to good practices.
And if we've successfully mapped out what the ethical principles are, the big question that remains, the crucial question for you, the listener, is about how we do it. How do we make sure that 5th principle, explicability, is applied not as some regulatory afterthought when something goes wrong,
but that it's built in from the absolute beginning of every single AI design process? That's something to mull over.